Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Objective Control, where we care most about barons, dragons, timers, and towers. We're back with episode 2, and we have a bit to talk about. Some things have changed since we last spoke, since we last gathered. We've got some roster changes to talk about. As before, let's start with NA. So we've got the announcement of Team Immortals. We've got Huni, Rainover, Pobelter, Wild Turtle, and Adrian. Anyone want to talk about that lineup? Let's start with Nico.
Okay, first I would like to say, I called it. Like, I knew this was happening. I'm so glad that Pobelter got a team. He deserved it. He's star mid laner CLG last split. He's very underrated, I feel like, and very underappreciated. Like he said in his video, he even has a video of Immortals' first look. I watched it. I approve of this whole lineup. Huni's an amazing top laner. We just saw it at All-Stars and his past representation in Fnatic. And Rainover, he's been like the solid jungler. And I feel like he was overshadowed by the success of Febiven and Reckless and Huni, but he definitely was a really good player on Fnatic. He definitely made the plays. Wild Turtle's kind of like the wild card of the team, I would say. He with flashing forward, or the gap closer and then flash forward. We'll see how he does with this kind of. Adrian, Jose went over it last episode. Kid's a star. Like he's got so much potential and he's better this split than.
True. Jose, talk to me a little bit about what you think the team synergy might look like.
On paper, Team Immortal sounds like a really big deal, but I feel like there's a lot of things that come up when you look at the roster. After like an in-depth look at the roster, you're like, all right, so who's captain? Pobelter has the most experience. Adrian is possibly has the highest league IQ out of all of them. Rainover and Huni are tilt lords. Wild Turtle.
Nah.
Right? So it's like, I really want to see. I want to scrim. I want to hear somebody say that Immortals are good in scrim. I want to hear something because, in all honesty, including Wild Turtle, they are all very mechanically gifted players. But Wild Turtle tilts easily and does his usual flash gap closer plays. Huni has been known in EU to be a tilt lord, and once you get like 1 or 2 deaths on Huni, he just starts forcing things and everything goes sideways. Rainover is not even top 5 jungler in NA.
Are you sure?
I think when he runs into the likes of Rush, hopefully the return of Move, right? It's gonna be savage, is the least to say. But I think it all this first split, I'm going with what Bjergsen said. I'm gonna apply those rules to IMT2, or those words to IMT2. Spring split does not mean as much to them, but in summer split they will be a top team.
So about this team, it looks good on paper, but it's a very resource heavy team. You need to delegate resources to top and bottom, and based on which you delegate to, the other side is going to be losing out. So you could have different structures that are really strong, but having that many resources needed, you might actually end up hurting the team. So we'll have to see how things go.
So, Francis, do you think that there are any other notable roster changes, secures, confirmed things going on in NA right now?
Right now, I don't think there's a lot to talk about. Most of the rosters seem pretty set. We just have to see where we go from here. I like the rosters where they are right now. Personally, I would have chosen Keith Mabrief on any of the teams that are, struggling with an AD carry right now. Maybe CLG, maybe IMT. Have him sub in or somewhere, which would be ironic for Wild Turtle. Have him sub in again, but
I was about to say, Wild Turtle's like shivering right now that you said that.
But I do feel like Keith has something to prove, and he's definitely a diamond in the rough. He needs to get some more exposure.
I think the Immortals lineup really hinges on Huni. Huni's always demanded a high amount of resources. Pobelter can play without resources. He has played without resources. He's very flexible in that respect. So is Wild Turtle. But Wild Turtle is probably the biggest issue because he did struggle last season a lot. He had one of the lowest damage outputs as an ADC. He died an awful lot. But yeah, he does bring experience. He has those sick Jinx ults. You can only get that from experience. And I can see it being focused on Huni and Adrian, with Adrian as a shot caller. By spring, I imagine Immortals will be a pretty strong lineup.
All right. So in Europe, we've got Navi, finally taking a shot at the League esports scene. We've got Team Vitality being headed by Kasing. And we've got Gamsu and Spirit joining Fnatic. That's a topic near and dear to my heart, because I think Gamsu is one of the best top laners in the West. Does anyone have any thoughts that conspicuously agree with me? Because if not, I won't hear you.
Man, Fnatic does it again. You can't make this stuff up. Whoever's in their office, their managers, their GM, everyone, you guys are geniuses. And round of applause for you guys. Like, it's amazing. Not only did you just pick up another like truly untested talent in Gamsu, who did really well in his splits with Dignitas with minimal resources from Helios, or Zach actually, Zingy gave him a lot of resources. But once Helios came in, there was not much being given to him in the top lane.
Can I just say, you just straight up called a Zingy Zach. Like,
Yeah,
he
no.
doesn't have a personality
No,
of
he's
his
just
own
Zach.
anymore.
He's just Zach.
He's
Zach
just
Aquarius.
the champion Zach.
Okay.
Zach
Fnatic
Aquarius.
does it again. You picked up the person who at one point was touted as the best jungler in the world in Spirit. And then pick up Gamzu to be helped by Spirit to become the next Huni, or if not better than Huni, in EU. In a region where there are maybe 3 good top laners, Gamzu is gonna destroy. Fnatic is gonna be number 2. They did it again. Now all we need to find out who their support is, but that is amazing to me. It's like they don't miss a beat.
Okay, number 2 is not number 1 though. So you're saying that even with all of this great stuff, they're still gonna kick it down a notch. Talk to me more about this top lane pick and how it relates to the rest of the region, Albert.
EU's known for having some strong top laners. Everyone's heard of Cabashard, everyone's heard of Soaz, and everyone has heard of Huni, of course. Hollow Hollow. Now, Huni was very underrated before, right? Like, everyone, when he came in, everyone's like, okay, this is like a risk. Like, don't do it, like, take someone else, turn some EU player into like the best player ever. But you now have Gamzu, which, in my opinion, has more potential and a higher skill ceiling than Huni, and is more mature as a player. So, with Fnatic support staff intact, like, they have a really solid support staff. Everyone knows this. Like, you've seen how they've developed over the past 2 splits, literally going 18-0, not dropping a single game in an entire split. I want to see them. They're going to be top 2. I don't know if they're going to be number 1 or number 2, because it really depends on. I think the only other team that really has potential to get to top 1 is Origin. So that's going to be between Febiven and Power of Evil / Expeke, and Febiven has always outperformed them, both. So I want to see how this mechanic works, and I think it's not going to be about the players as much as it is going to be a battle between structure of Origin and Fnatic, and all these newer teams that are learning about structure, learning about different types of sports, and adapting to a best of 2 format later on, which we'll talk about.
Okay. Lenny, I'm curious because you had a lot to say about one of our free agent members last episode, but unfortunately we have to say goodbye to him this episode. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, my choice for ADC, of course, Forgiven, has found the team. Right now they say it's only for IEM, that's the lineup for H2K, but it is looking like a pretty solid lineup. You got Ryu at mid lane, Forgiven at ADC, Vander, who else? Otoamne? Jenkos, right?
Dangles.
Jenkos, yeah. I think H2K is a pretty solid lineup as well. I don't discount them. I don't buy into the hype as much as the rest of you for Gamsu. My memory of him last season is he was probably the most impressive member of Dig, but he mostly played utility champions, tanks, and only Gnar impressed me from his champion pool, which I don't remember being that extensive. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, he was a very good Gnar. Other than that, I don't know. I'm really excited about H2K with Ryu and Forgiven, who are, they don't get a lot of hype, but they are very mechanical players, and I'm just excited to see how they showcase that.
I think it's funny that EU has always been touted as the land that breeds mid laners. But right now, I think they have most of their talent is spread out in the top lane. There's a lot of great top laners in the EU right now. Their mid lane pool is shrinking. Like Froggen doesn't have a team right now. He's signed to a team, but nothing's been announced officially. Expeke is retiring, even though he's gonna sub in, but we know that that's where he's going. So if we're talking about really good mid laners in the EU, like Febiven, Power of Evil, maybe Ryu and Soren. Soren has been falling down. Copenhagen Wolves as an organization isn't as impressive as it was before. Pepinero maybe. I really wish Pepinero could get a team that could properly give him the resources to carry, that some help. But when you were talking about top laners, you missed some of the big ones. Vizicachi is a monster. Like now, UOL signed Diamond Procs, so I'm expecting Vizicachi and Diamond Procs to go ham. Like that's the pair, the duo that I'm looking for. Of course, Jankos and Odo Omni are gonna be a massive team too. The First Blood King with Odo Omni, who's a solid top laner. So that just translates into good numbers to me.
I agree with you actually, Francis, because now that I think about it, you're right. They have some really good top jungle combinations. Let's not forget about Shook and Cabochard. Like, Cabochard was a beast on Gambit Gaming, dude. And Shook, he was more solo QS. He was kind of like Rush in a way. Like, he went for those high risk, high reward plays. But I feel like, just like Rush, he calms it down and he plays more of a LCS style jungler, which pretty much he translates his advantages into the other lanes, where I feel like with Cabochard being a carry top laner, you can translate all of that into him. I feel like the Vitality bot lane is actually really good, Cassine is without a doubt a great support. He's mechanically gifted. We've seen that at All-Stars. We saw that with TSM at IEM. Like, overall, I feel like you're right on the whole top jungle champion pool. I feel like you're right.
Well,
And their mid lane pool is definitely decreasing.
Jose, what do you think about Navi finally putting its name out there for the league scene? Do you think finally it's admitted that it can go higher and that Dota is not the ceiling for them? They can finally inject themselves into the more popular sport?
Shots fired. I personally think it has nothing to do with money or anything. I just think Navi was so busy strengthening their chokehold on other esports games that now that they have it and it's theirs, why not take over another esport? And it's about time. This is the time. This split or this preseason has been the preseason with the most changes so far. This is the preseason where LCS spots are being sold for 7 figures. Navi has to jump on the boat now. Same with Vitality. They both made the right move. They need to jump on the boat now before these LCS spots become $5, $6, $7 million deals. They can't come in at that point. They're gonna have to build a challenger team, come up from the bottom without having to waste all that money. Now is the time. The League of Legends bubble can possibly not get bigger than this at this point. So it's either take advantage because it's gonna keep going up, or be there for the final rise of it before it falls completely.
I agree to some extent. I think Navi's doing it in a way because of a legacy rather than for the money. Because if you're going to go for the money, you're not going to go in the region that has the most problems with sponsorship. But I do think they missed the boat. I think they should have jumped on the NA. Though I do believe Navi is a European organization.
Yep.
But they should have jumped into NA. I think they jumped into the EU ship because if we look at the last split and the split before, EU has been a dominating force. Fnatic, Origin. But the way it looks right now, the harder teams seem to be more towards the NA side. Most of the big name talent has been lured in by the big money. So I feel like if they want competition, they kind of also miss the boat. They're not in it for the money. They're not even going to get the most competition out of it either. But of course, it's all speculative. We don't know how these new teams are going to perform. We don't know if there's going to be great synergy between them or if they're going to crash and burn. we'll just have to see. But I am glad that we have more brands out there that are looking into esports. You know, hopefully we find out who bought the Gravity spot. Maybe it's Cuban that wants to make his mark in NA.
Mr.
Okay.
Cuban, if you're listening,
Please,
Please.
I love you, Mark Cuban.
please
Please,
join League of Legends. Please, Team Unicorn, please.
yeah, right? Team Unicorn. Oh my God.
All right,
No,
let's fly on over to Asia and talk about some of these things because I'm excited. I'm excited to see Last Boy going back to coach for Incredible Miracle. I think his talent was poorly manipulated on TSM, to say the least. But I'm a fangirl. But I'm most excited to talk about Marin on LGD. King Marin decided to grace LGD with his presence. Do we have any opinions on that? Can we start with someone who's not Jose? Because I always start with Jose. Albert.
A mini Korean exodus this time, not as big as last year, but I don't know if Marin's gonna shine just like all the rest of the imports. Like you had Looper, right? He was really good, and then where is he now? Like no one's heard a thing about
In the
him.
jacuzzi, swimming in millions.
Yeah, but the point is that as a player, you aren't progressing, right?
Yeah.
Marin's older. He has more reasons to like not really give a shit, which is fine. But as a player, I don't know if we'll have the best things happen because like a thing that every single player that was successful, and I think is even in the new Riot article about what we saw in 2015, teamwork is what is needed in order to succeed, and it's really hard to have good teamwork when communication is at a bare minimum. Food for thought, but I would love for him to do well. He's honestly my favorite player. I wish him the best because as a player and as an individual, he deserves it. But in terms of talent progression, I don't know if that'll be there. I don't know if he will be the Marin that like single-handedly stops the enemy team from ending a game when every single one of them are up and only he is up on a tank. Like that's something that is unforgettable. Like that is the reason SKT is as big as they are now because of that one play that he made in spring finals game 4 against CJ. Like no other player can just like do that, you know?
I think China has the reverse effect of EU right now. I feel like China destroys top laners. I feel like a lot of their top laners at some point are like, man, this guy's amazing. But in like a split, the next split, it's like this guy's trash. Like the top laners in China, they get progressively worse. You've seen a lot of great talent, a lot of great top lane talent in China, and it's like they don't know what to do. They switch Insec and Dandy both to top lane, and it's like, let's see, they're mechanically, amazing, and then just nothing happens there. Insec goes back to jungle, Dandy goes back to jungle. Like, what do we do? I guess that also has to do with they have a really huge challenger scene. The LSPL is just like teeming with talent. Like QG came out of the LSPL, and I'm looking forward to QG being a great team again. There's a lot more that we can talk about in China, but I'm on the fence about whether Marin is going to be able to prove himself. Not all junglers are very top friendly, especially in a region like China. I think most of the talent is mid lane and AD carry, and that's where the junglers are focusing more of their priorities. So, I mean, I'd love to see Marin be a third threat in a really good team like LGD, but they have a Korean carry in every role now. If you think about it. But I don't know. I'm mostly more excited for Easy Hoon, wherever Mata's going. I'd hope Mata would stay with Vici, but who knows?
Recently, Riot has actually overhauled its NA Challenger scene, now calling it an NA Open Qualifier. Do you want to give us some insight on how is Challenger being battled right now?
Recently, Riot overhauled its entire system for Challenger, right? Ranked 5s has officially zero meaning in any like facet of competition. Like there is no reason for anyone to be like, okay, I really should be like on the challenger, like ranked 5's ladder. Everything is gonna be more official with scrims going on now. Everything's gonna be more official with like teams getting together in like TGN chats, which is the Gamers Network, and companies are becoming more official. You have coaches, you have analysts, you have managers, you have constant scrim partners, etc., etc. And that's really good, but you also have 6 teams progressing to an actual format that doesn't require at least one best of 3. Like you have people actually playing games with each other and like, okay, I didn't do so well today, let's see what we can do tomorrow. But rather, that's not what happens, right? You have every team getting into a best of 3. Um, if you got a good pick, if you had a good patch, like great, you made it. Like you're now officially in the Challenger Series. Move to your gaming house, move to your whatever. Right now, the Challenger Series has no backbone. If a player gets sick, if he gets a heart attack, he forfeits. Right, the team lost. Like they could be the best players. Like you could have Bjergsen, Huni, like every star player you could have on like every other player on every other team could be like like they don't even have like a way to actually play the game. If someone has a heart attack, there's like no way that you can actually progress. Like there's nothing you can do. You can't reschedule, you can't do anything, and I feel like that's way too strict. I feel like the fact that if a team can progress without playing games in at least more than one scenario. Like if it's like the bottom tier, like okay, if it's like to be top 30, like to be in the first bracket, okay, you could skip that. But to get to top 8, to get to top 4, to get to top 2, to win the thing, I feel like there should be something in place to prevent something like that. If someone gets a heart attack, like what are you gonna do?
All right, see, the issue I have with this thought, and the issue I have with the whole challenger scene, actually, I'm going to segue into that, is that it is a qualifier. Just like if you were to go to an audition or an interview, if you get sick for that date, you're not guaranteed to get a second tryout time. It is a tryout. You don't get the luxury of a second chance. That's the whole point of a tryout, a qualifier. Now, what I feel about the challenger scene, if you want to make it more popular, more immersive, you make it its own tournament where the sole purpose of the challenger scene is just like any other sport, the NCAA. I only know basketball, so I'm just going to reference the NCAA, where it's its own tournament, and the only purpose of it is one, to win, and two, to showcase your individual talent. So you'll be picked up by an actual team. Because other than that, you're in a qualifier. It's just like any other job interview. It's just like any other audition. You are trying out, and you don't have the luxury of a sick day. Like that is a luxury in itself. So I don't agree with if you have problems. Okay, I know you're human. That's not your fault, but tough luck. That's just life.
My problem with I think this overhaul is probably the worst idea ever. One, two. My problem with this whole challenger bracket, it doesn't have to be a bracket. This qualifier thing, it's ridiculous and it's meaningless. To like unless you're in top 8, it's meaningless. And like Albert said, at that point there needs to be some clause that holds these spots for these people. Regardless of that, I don't care about the bracket because it shouldn't be a bracket to begin with. LCS needs a mini LCS. They need a D League. It needs to happen. They need to have 5 teams on a 10-game season. Something. Because it's pointless to tell me that a team is going to make it into the LCS by winning a whole bunch of best of ones. That could literally be the luckiest thing ever. They could hit the luckiest breaks up that road. It needs to be like the Demacia Cup. They need to have an LSPL season. These teams need to play each other consistently to improve the scene, 1, to give them more practice, 2, and to overall showcase talent. There needs to be a D League, just like there is in football. You have the Canadian football. You have the CBA for NBA, college basketball, the MLB, AAA, and AA. There's all these setups that people will actually play regular seasons to get better at the game and to showcase their talent. LCS needs to step the fuck up.
I think they were trying to do that with the collegiate scene for what it's worth. But Nico, did you have something you wanted to say?
This is how I feel when it comes to NA challenger scene and an Asian challenger scene. Like Jose said, they don't play each other enough. So how the hell can our talent even
Develop.
begin to develop or even compete with an LCS team at all in any kind of level if they're playing best of ones. That's gonna do nothing for them at all.
Francis.
Relegated teams are pretty much like, hey, here's a second chance. You get to beat up a dummy challenger team that has like 0 experience.
And that's exactly why they added that top team automatically comes in, because they know beyond the shadow of a doubt the chances of that team actually beating an LCS caliber team is pretty slim.
They have that in other sports too. Francis, what were you gonna say?
Well, I agree with both of you. The one thing I do want to add is before LCS was best of ones. So it doesn't seem like a very far-fetched idea to make the challenger scene the same way. Now, it's not the best format, obviously, but before, LCS was just best of ones all the way through up until the end, and you could get lucky, you can be really good. Obviously, it's not the same because the LCS teams have support staff, they have coaches, they have analysts, they practice more, they're more regulated. Yes, they're more motivated. But the challenger scene, it just needs to be completely dismantled and start, they need to start from the bottom once again.
The LCS is different. It's fine that it's best of ones, but these teams are going to play the same 10 teams throughout the whole season. Nothing's going to change for them. They're going to play every team twice, right? These challenger teams are going to see each other maybe once, if ever, or not see each other at all, like that one team in the battlegrounds. That's not the point of the challenger series. What you need to do, and it's pretty simple. Top 16 teams in challenger, throw them into a bracket for a best of 3. Top 8 teams, throw them into a season. Have them play 9, 10 games. Or 8 best of ones, one against each team.
A round robin.
A round robin. One best of 3 against each, or one best of 1 or one best of 3 against each team. Tally the points. Top 4 go into a bracket. Those 2 teams that win, they get to fight an LCS team for their spot. That's simple. Guess what? Now these teams have had competitive practice, 1. They're used to the LCS format, 2. And there's no way they could get cheated out of their spot, because in order to get into from the beginning, you had to play a best of 3, and you had to be top 16 in challenger. These are set. You can't do anything besides this. If you're not top 16 in challenger, I'm sorry, you're not in. It's not happening. If you happen to have a sick player, guess what? We can reschedule. Your game has to be played.
That's great. My question to you is, with that setup, what are we going to do for the people who are in college or high school or have jobs or have lives? Because we already saw that was impacting LCS players significantly.
This may sound like heartless, but if your ultimate goal is to get into the LCS, then when it comes to school, when it comes to a job, you need to get your priorities straight. If you want to be a LCS player, you need to devote your time to LCS. That's it. If this is what you want in life, if what you want is to be in the LCS and play all these top players, then devote your time to that. I'm sorry.
But you're going to drop out of school to go into challenger scene?
Yo, man.
Lenny, your thoughts?
All right, here's how I find all of this retarded. First of all, if you do all these games with all these teams, best out of 2, best out of 3, what have you, who's going to cast it? Who's going to be hosting? Who's going to be hosting this? Who's going to be? You need a support staff. You need an audience to make up for all that money you're spending to do this shit. Sorry, and then, as you said, these are kids, they're challengers. They're in high school, maybe early college. Even in regular sports, you have high school dropouts, but only after they've signed a team and they've established, this is what I'm going to do for a living. My livelihood is secure. This format that everyone here is suggesting is you're putting their livelihood in jeopardy for gaming, which is a very tentative thing. It's not easy. It's very cutthroat. It's very temporal. It won't last forever. And that is why this format exists, to protect these kids they have this dream, I can game for a living, my life is set. It's to protect them.
Honestly, I feel like even when potential professional athletes are scouted in schools, they're done so with the correlation that they'll also be going through college. So that if you're trying to get these kids into the challenger scene, then you need to set up a support network for that as well. That is a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of investment to be coming from one organization.
What Lenny said, a lot of it was about money. right? You need money, like you need money in the scene. You need people to play for money. So let me tell you about the LSPL. People actually win money there. That's a surprise. Like they play games and like not many people watch these games, which is not the point. Like the point is that they actually play the games in a competitive level and they are trying to get better to get to the highest competitive level, which would be the LPL or in our case, the LCS. If Riot wants its competitive scene to continue growing at a better and faster rate than it is now, which you can clearly see because NA hasn't been picking up many challenger players into the LCS, EU has not done the same. The only regions that do are the LCK and LPL. I wonder why. Maybe they have just more competition for many reasons. If Riot wants a more competitive major region that people watch, then you must put in money in the other areas. Players that get onto these teams, they sign with the knowledge of what they're signing. They have to have that knowledge. They have to have consent from their parents if they're under 18. So if they are high schoolers, well, guess what? Something is there for them. There is a pillow, there is a cushion. This isn't an unregulated scene, it's just a very poorly regulated scene. It needs money, it needs management, it needs nourishment, it needs resources. Okay? If that doesn't happen, then you're going to say goodbye to the majority of the competitive scene soon enough. You can see this in EU because last year, how many teams were actually good in Europe? You got 3 out of 10. That's a 30%, and then you also have Challenger Series under that. So now you have really weak teams and then even more weak teams. So maybe you should put money somewhere since if there's one thing that we know that Riot doesn't worry about, it's money.
This is a hot button topic for me as a former student athlete because every other sport has a better infrastructure for student athletes than League has. It's sad because it's not that hard to do. If you were a player playing baseball in high school and you got scouted by the MLB, you were signed to the MLB. You weren't paid, you were signed to the MLB. They tell you what college you can go to, and then you would play for that college. That's it. Not that hard. But you were signed to the MLB. That means when the draft phase came up, they would draft you regardless of where they drafted you, and you got to play. But you had to continue playing for something. You're not getting paid for it, but you have to continue playing for something. So does it need resources? Very minimal resources. Doesn't need much. If you do it the way I said it, or any other way that involves the challenger scene, not only do you make challenger more competitive, one, which has been the problem in EU and NA, two, the 5v5 challenger ladder now has meaning. LCS teams now have more teams to practice against because there are people coming up the challenger scene. And they don't have to be part of the challenger scene. Three, you don't have to have the top 5 teams in challenger be team solo mid because they decided they wanted to scrim. No, now you can lead the challenger scene to these challenger teams. If they come up, they can easily scrim against competition because they've been practicing. And you can set up a season where it doesn't interfere with everyone's life. And like Albert said, if you decided to go to NBA at 18, you decided. Or if you decided to go to D League at 18, you decided. That's your decision. Parents' consent, whatever it is, that's the decision you made. You have to literally drop everything to do that. So
Okay.
why can't you not drop everything to play League?
The key difference, and this goes back to what I said, is that all these major sports, they have their own tournament where the spot in the LCS is not guaranteed, which is why I have to go back to that. If you have a separate tournament where the purpose is to showcase your skills rather than secure a spot and a job, then yes, you can have this support system. But they don't have the support system. If they're in, for example, if you're a student playing for a college, you don't have a guarantee to play in Major League Baseball as an official team. You're still in school, which is the support system, because you don't have to jump right into that sport at 18.
Okay. Just one quick thing. And add to what Lenny said. I do agree with you, Lenny, on some points. I agree with Jose, and I agree with Albert. But see, the thing here in NA is, and a lot of challengers have said this, the teams that pick them up, very little like money into them. So it's hard to make a living. Like they don't have a team house, they don't have, any way of getting the Skrilla, like besides playing, you know what I'm saying? Like I understand what you're saying, Jose, and like if if the NA challenger scene wants to step up, then the organizations that want to pick up a challenger team need to step it up with the money. They need to give them that stepping stool they need to just put everything into it. Because if not, these kids are going to be across the world trying to play games and not in a team house where they need to be. Only some challenger teams can do that.
I think something important to note is that in other traditional sports, they have different organizations, but they also have the college to fall back on. League doesn't really have that unless you count like maybe 2 universities across the entire United States that has a league program. Let's say if there were more universities that gave league scholarships and sponsorships like that. We got Adrian from that. You know, Adrian was straight out of college, got drafted into an LCS team. If there were more programs like that, it wouldn't be such a risky move to drop everything and devote yourself to this life. But
Nice.
I do agree that, you know, if you're going to go for something, go big or go home. If you want to be in LCS, you need to put all of your effort into it. Void Boy didn't go to college, and he had scholarships, and he got scouted by huge universities, Ivy Leagues. He decided he wanted to go the league route, wanted to try it out, see what's good. Then you have other people like Cali Trolls decided league's not for me. I'm gonna go back to college. You have both ways. There's always gonna be a safety net because last I checked, very few people last very long in the league pro scene. This isn't a 10-year, you know, even 5-year thing. They still have time. If they start at 17. They get into the scene, get out of the scene by 21, whatever. They still have plenty of time to pursue other venues. They can go into casting. They can go into analyst desk. They can go into coaching. They can go in the support system. They can just go back to college. You know, there's a lot of stuff to do there. And also, in regards to funding a challenger scene, there are plenty of people that would love the opportunity to cast for these sort of things. You know, you have people, we need more casters. So why not do an open audition for casters to cast the challenger scene and get caster talent while we're looking for challenger talent at the same time?
I'm gonna make one last point about this. I understand where you guys are coming from, where this has to be streamed. I don't understand why this can't be like every other sport and these can be dark card matches. Who has to see them? No one has to see them. We just have to know that they are actually being played. If you have a writer monitoring or moderating these things, no one ever has to see these matches till we get to top 8. Because in all honesty, the first couple teams that played, they're not that important. We care about top 8 because these are the teams that are going to be in the little LCS tournament. There are plenty of dark card matches that happen at UFC. There are plenty of dark card matches that happen in boxing. There are plenty of NBA games that you don't get to see on national TV, but they happen. Don't they? They happen.
Thank you guys. You guys have provided a lot of interesting points about the roster changes, about the challenger scene and where we can go from there. All I'd like to bring up is that Jose's Baron Dance prediction, unfortunately, was very quickly burnt to a crisp.
I said it. It'll be debunked within the week.
You said 3 to 4 weeks.
E for effort.
I said it'll be debunked within the week.
So have you prepared another bold prediction for us?
I am team number 1.
NRG is the number 1 team in NA.
Holy shit.
Ooh.
Bruh.
What?
Dude, you're gonna eat that shit.
If that happens, I'll suck it.
You're going to eat so much poo-poo.
I'm going with NRG, number 1 team in NA.
Okay.
I'm going to eat the poo-poo.
So wait,
Albert, you want to change yours?
hold on. So
Well,
if
mine
his
wasn't, like,
prediction
bold like
comes
that.
true, then my prediction might come true as well. Or my prediction might make his prediction come true.
TSM being top 5?
No, GBM being the number 1 mid laner.
Yes, baby. No, he's not going to be number 1. I don't think it's going to be because of GVM, but I think in terms of roster synergy, since they announced theirs so quickly, they've actually had time to practice out of all the teams. Not to mention they have really good players. I think NRG will be number 1 team in NA. For the first split. Second split, they got bodied.
That is hella bold, dude.
Damn, you
That is
you
the poo-poo.
prophesizing far into the future. You're like
in the
going
second
out
split, it's
there.
going to be TSM number
Yo,
1.
you're
Everyone
on your,
knows this. I
like,
don't know why you guys are
crumbs.
denying
No,
it.
you're saying a
prophecy
lot
type
now.
shit
This is
right
too
now.
bold, too bold. Albert, you really want to get off the C9 bandwagon?
It's not that. It's just that it's not really a bold thing. I think C9's gonna take it all. But what I want to say is, we're gonna have a team that has been doing well for a long time and has been at least like 7th or higher is gonna get relegated in NA. Like 100%.
Oh,
Like,
Judy.
no one's gonna like. It's just gonna be like,
By
"Oh, this was amazing last split. They actually won games," and like the competition level is gonna be so high that like you're gonna see like Dig is gonna go or something like that. Like just poof, like gone.
They're gonna get Digna tossed out the
Albert,
LCS.
listen, I can vaguely sense in the air what you guys are so subtly trying to insinuate. Y'all can all go to hell.
Hey, Judy, no, Judy, it's okay. All my teams got relegated, baby.
I know, yeah, you know.
She doesn't want to be
I'll be
you.
in the Nico.
She's not trying to hop on the
man.
Nico
No,
automatically.
dude, think about how happy I am just being fans of
Nico,
the player.
Nico, she doesn't want to have to buy 7 jerseys.
Also,
Ricardo relegation
CLG
Sanchez.
will not be top 5.
What? Wait? What?
What?
CLG is not gonna be top 5.
No, that's guaranteed though. Don't worry
Oh, yeah,
about
I
that.
can see
That's why
that.
Lenny
No,
hop
no,
jump
people
ship.
expect them to be top 3. They're not gonna
That's
be
why Lenny
top.
did.
They're not
Lenny
gonna
was
be
No
like,
way.
"I'll be-"
There are
Yeah, he's
at
like,
least 4 teams
I'm
better.
excited to make fun of CLG finally now and not cry.
Dank memes.
Dude.
Dank memes.
I'm changing my bold prediction. TSM's gonna be number 1.
Ooh.
Hey.
Hey.
Yo,
I don't
after
like-
I
I don't
saw
like the
the
sound of
plays
that.
in All Stars, it doesn't have meaning to you, but I got a lot of faith over it.
Oh god.
Oh,
no, don't
Faith,
bring this
the
into
Faith.
TSL.
Ooh, you're
Carry
getting
over.
faithy again.
The faith.
Well, thank you guys all for listening. This has been Objective Control. Here's our cast members signing off.
I'm Cypherius, and I'm the smartest bronze player you know.
I'm Lord Raging, and there is no Elo Heaven.
I'm Nico Sanchez, and I'm just slightly more toxic.
I'm Lenny, and I'm not drunk.
I'm Albert, and I just graduated.
And I'm Judy, and this has been Objective Control. We're AFK till next time.
I can tell you right now, EG needs to step up their StarCraft roster because they're relying way too much on J-Dong. Like, yo, J-Dong's getting ancient, buddy.
Man, do they really need to?
Do they
StarCraft
really
is
need
such
to
a
update anything
dying,
with StarCraft 2 and I just let it
I
die?
dying
love
esport.
Dude, I go to sleep watching StarCraft, man.
Yeah,
I love
we all
watching
go to
StarCraft.
sleep watching
That
StarCraft.
is
Yeah.
very indicative of the state of StarCraft.
I watch
right now.
StarCraft and I fall asleep immediately.
No. I watch
StarCraft is the
till I fall
lullaby.
asleep.
Yeah,
Dude,
because it puts you
League
to
of
sleep,
Legends
Nico.
puts me to sleep faster, dude. Watching the LCS puts me
We
to
didn't
sleep
hear that.
faster.
We love you, Riot. Shh.
Oh, God.
Sponsor us.
Sponsor us,
Sponsor
please.
us.
I mean, you already sponsored something we do. Sponsor us more.
Oh, was that a plug?
Yes, that was a
No,
plug.
please, no.
Do I need to go change into my shirt mid-recording?
Please.
Come back.
Remember
Let
me
me
at
just.
MSI? People are gonna watch this. They'll be like, "Hey, man, I think I saw you at MSI doing the same thing."
Hey, can we wrap this up?
Fucking stop making fun of me. I was walking and I was thinking about it, and I want someone to ask like irrelevant questions. So fuckers.
Yo, can we have it in like a? I'm Albert, and I just graduated.
Oh!
Yay!
Nobody cares.
That is cool.
Wow.
Care. Shut the fuck up.
Nico's role playing his toxicity. Sorry.
Yeah.